this video, I'll look at the Liang Shrine, one of the most famous and important sites in the Eastern Han Dynasty. My main objective in this presentation is to explore issues of Han legitimacy by examining pictorial carvings at the Liang Shrine. And just as a note, I will be using the term Liang Ci and Liang Shrine interchangeably, so just keep that in mind as we go forward. Now we'll look at the geography of the Liang Shrine. It is located in Shandong Province, which is in northeast China, this region here. A more zoomed-in map shows us that the Liang Shrine is part of present-day Jiaxian in Shandong. Now we'll spend some time looking at Liang, the man and his shrine. Liang was a Confucian scholar who lived from 77 to 151 AD, which is during the Eastern Han Dynasty. He belonged to the New Script School and was a teacher of many of its texts. This is a reconstruction of his shrine. The shrine was not built by him, but was instead built by his sons after he passed away. Even though he did not directly build it, he did influence what was inside of the shrine, especially the pictorial carvings that are so in line with his work and his research. Liang was buried there along with other members of his family. One of the purposes of the shrine was for future generations to be able to come and pay respects to their ancestors, but also they should be able to learn about Chinese history and through the different pictorial carvings at the shrine. And one of the interesting things about the shrine is that it's a symbolic structure. And so the ceilings, they correspond to celestial phenomena and heavenly beings and omens. And the walls, they correspond to worldly events and history. And we'll look at that now by looking at the layout of the shrine. And so this top region here, this is actually the ceiling of the shrine. And these are the omen slabs. These two shaded regions here, these are the heavenly gables, which are over two of the walls. And they show heavenly characters like the Queen Mother of the West, who became very important during the Han in the search for eternal life. This bottom part down here, this large shaded region, these are the walls of the shrine, and they correspond to earthly history and earthly events. And they were, and so one of the interesting things about this structure is that there's a definite relationship between heaven and earth. And so there's this great idea during the Han that there's not a separation, but that heaven is very much still interested in, will show its opinion about earth and the people who are ruling over it. Now for the rest of the presentation we'll be looking at omens. And so we'll start out by looking at omens in the eyes of the Han. And one of the important things to keep in mind is that whereas in today's language, omen means, to forecast something, to predict something about the future, but in the Han thinking, they appear in response to past events. And so if a ruler was doing good, then he should expect to receive an auspicious omen, showing that he has earned heaven's approval. But if he is mistreating his people, if he is going against what heaven stands for, then he should expect to receive an inauspicious omen, a bad omen. And so it was very important to discern the will of heaven during this time. And omens were also used to interpret the history that preceded the Han, so the three sovereigns, the five emperors, the three dynasties. And what the Han saw was that auspicious omens preceded the mandate of heaven for each ruling sovereign, emperor, and dynasty. And so the Han had a problem. How could they claim status as a dynasty without being directly related to previous ruling families? What gave them the right? And so they really needed to interpret omens to answer this question. So one of the solutions that was proposed by one of the leading scholars, Dong Zhongshu, were cycles, interlocking cycles. There are cycles of 2, 3, 4, 5, and 9, although the cycles of 2 and 5 became very important to the Han. So the cycle of 2 is this idea of oscillations between this idea of Wen, refinement, and Zhi, simplicity. And so the Shah being the first dynasty were Wen, then the Zhi part went to Shang, then it oscillated back to Zhou being Wen and Qin being Zhi, and back to Han, part of the Wen. This is very interesting because the omen slabs have almost no references to omens from the Shang or the Qin, but is basically entirely focused on omens from the Xia and the Zhou. And so the Han very much viewed themselves as part of the same line, coming from the Xia to the Zhou, then to them. Then the cycle of 5, this is associated with the 5 elements. So the first in the cycle is the Yellow Emperor, because he was supposed to be the first to receive this mandate from heaven. And he corresponds to Earth because of the color yellow. And then the Xia came next. They correspond to fire. And then Shan to water. Zhou to metal. Qin to wood. And then the cycle repeats. And the Han, they correspond to Earth. And because they take the same position as the Yellow Emperor, they see a great relationship between the Yellow Emperor and the Han, and that they are fulfilling that same role that the Yellow Emperor did. And this gave them a lot of confidence in having received the mandate of heaven. And so now that the Han had shown that they had the paperwork, the scholarly work done for that they did receive the mandate, but they were still looking for a sign from heaven. And the signs from heaven came in forms of omens. And so one of the main ones that they looked for was this divine tripod. And so this divine tripod, this image is a reconstruction from the slabs at the Liang Ci. And I'll show you where that is on the slab. It's at the top right of Liang slab 1. And the tripods have a very interesting role in the history of China. And they didn't ever make an appearance until the Zhou. And so the Zhou wrote that the Xia had received 9 tripods from heaven as a sign of heaven's goodwill, as the sign of earth and heaven's close and intimate, sincere, peaceful relationship. And so then these 9 tripods passed from the Xia to the Shang to the Zhou. And so then the Han, having seized power, they're wondering, okay, well, where are these tripods? If we have really received the mandate, they should appear. But they didn't have them. Sima Qian even couldn't reconcile this issue of tripods. He thought either the Qin had them, or maybe they fell into a river and they've been lost. And so it was a big issue for the Han, because they really were seeking a way to further solidify their rule and their authority as a political tool. And so it was very difficult for them until 116 BC, when there was a large tripod that was found in Feng. And Emperor Wu himself went there. And whenever they brought it back to the capital, there were the majority of people thinking that this tripod was from the Xia, that it was one of the 9. But there was a necromancer from Shandong named Gongsan Qing that said it had been fashioned by Huangdi, and he made this claim based on his thinking that he had received a secret text straight from Huangdi that says, the Han's prosperity will repeat that of Huangdi. And so Emperor Wu was very excited about this. He's like, oh, well, even better, it's from the Yellow Emperor. And so for the Han, it became a point where, well, how can the Yellow Emperor not have received this? If he's really the one who first received the mandate of heaven, then he should have received a tripod. And then we match up in the same cycle as the Yellow Emperor, so we should be receiving this tripod as well. And so that tripod that they initially found did come to mean the one that was supposed to have been made by the Yellow Emperor. And then the Han also found more tripods discovered in AD 63, 82, and 89, which further confirmed that they were from the Xia as well. And so the tripods really further solidified their rule as a great sign of heaven's favor of them, of their confirmation of their rule. And it's interesting because this goes in stark contrast to the way that the Qin were being portrayed in this. And so this carving also comes from the Liang Ci, and it shows the Qin search for the tripod. And so the story goes that the Qin were finally able to find this tripod, and the first emperor sent thousands of men to find this tripod and to pull it out from the river. And whenever they get their ropes and they start pulling, then a dragon comes and he breaks all of the ropes. And so then the tripod is lost to them. So this is a sign of heaven's great disapproval, that they did not earn the approval, they did not earn the mandate of heaven. And so the Qin are further victimized by the Han, and because the Han are like, oh, well, we found it, but the Qin didn't. We are the rightful rulers. And this is just one last look at the tripod that was so important to the Han and the way that they established their rule. So now there are conclusions that we can make about the shrine, and very important ones, that it gives us a picture into the social, political, and religious discourses of the Han. And the Liang Ci also gives us insights of the Han struggle of trying to fit into this larger narrative of Chinese dynasties and the pursuit of justification for their role, seeking to be in line with the great dynasties before them. And so the shrine shows a lot, and it gives a lot of insights into these areas. So the Wuliang Shrine continues to show more and teach more about the Eastern Han Dynasty. And thank you for listening.